Good afternoon, Andrew. It's great to be at your beautiful offices. I mean, this is a great view. It's a shame our audience can't see that, but it's just amazing. Look at how beautiful Dubai is. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and I would like for you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about Orixcom, and then we'll jump right into the conversation.
All right, well, great to see you too, Emmett, and thanks for the opportunity. It's a rare pleasure to be on the same stage as you, but we do it every now and then, and it's nice to do it again. So yeah, I'm Andrew Grenville, the CEO of Orixcom. Now, Orixcom focuses on a few things, particularly here in the region, in the Middle East. We do connectivity. We're a telco in that respect, especially focusing nowadays on cloud connectivity, which is going to be very relevant to this discussion, I'm sure. We do run our own cloud as well, so we have a public cloud, and increasingly now we're doing more private and hybrid cloud deployments. And then we do managed services, which are really drawing on the skills of both the connectivity part and the cloud part, where we put a proper business solution together for customers. And our customers are big international companies trying to do stuff in the region. We help them out with that. Increasingly, they're also big local companies who are trying to understand the journey to cloud and make the best of those new technologies.
Excellent. So we, as you know, we have recently released our Cloud Competitiveness Index. One of the domains that we really look deep into is connectivity, and connectivity is your expertise. My first question, I guess, would be, what do you think the cost of this connectivity for this region? 'Cause, I mean, it's no secret. Everybody knows it's the affordability issues of connectivity in this market. Prices are way too high. How do you think this costly connectivity affects different clusters of education and different clients that you have?
Well, I guess first of all, let me kind of look at the overall picture, and then I'll perhaps pick on a couple of segments. So we're definitely in a part of the world where international connectivity particularly is a real premium. That has quite an impact across the piece. So if you're a company in Europe or America or most parts of the Far East, you would happily order gigabit connectivity and you'd be paying a few $100s or low numbers of thousands of dollars. But to illustrate the problem, if you're in the Middle East, let's say you're in Saudi or in the UAE and you want a 10 megabit line to London, you're probably paying $10,000–$15,000 a month.
That's unbelievable.
I mean, it's just the way it is. We're not in a part of the world that's yet fully opened up to telecoms competition. So that's just where we live. So we have to, get on with that and live with it, and be smart about finding ways to mitigate that cost. The problem that has generally for cloud in particular, cloud relies on a number of things to work well. It relies on good providers. They could be AWS, Office 365, Azure, all remote from this region. Or they could be local. Many of the telcos now have local clouds, and there's players like Alibaba are set up here. But in all cases, they need connectivity. Now, when that connectivity is cross-border, which is the case reaching AWS or Azure, to use them as illustrations, we've got a problem. In Europe, you'd put a 100 meg gig line and you wouldn't think about it. You can't do that here if you're going to pay for dedicated circuits. So it is holding back the widespread adoption of remote clouds. There are ways around that and some smart solutions to solve that, and that's a lot of what we do nowadays. We work particularly with Microsoft and AWS, helping their bigger customers figure out how they can use the advantages of the cloud, but not get hamstrung by the limitations on the cost of connectivity. And then to your second point, how does that affect different segments and different sectors? I think at the moment we're in a situation where pretty much everybody is on the same journey to the cloud. So we haven't seen dramatic emergence of one sector complaining more than another about the cost of connectivity. They all complain because it's expensive. But I think where we're going to see challenges is maybe in businesses which particularly rely on overseas resources. Maybe that's call centers, for example, or education establishments who like to access big number crunching capabilities that may not be in the region. For them, it's going to cause a problem because the size of the pipes they would traditionally have, they're going to struggle in this part of the world to be able to afford those, looking at the normal solutions that the incumbent telcos put together for them. But that's again where we have to be smart, we have to innovate, we look at the best of technology that's available, and we put together something that mitigates that risk and allows them to then start embracing the cloud.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, speaking of incumbent telcos, I know you've been long enough in this region to understand the ecosystem. You come from a telco background, so you know the cloud and the telco landscape very well. I guess my question is, what do you think the role of a telco, an incumbent telecom provider in this region, should be when it comes to cloud? Should they just be cloud cloud providers, as they are sometimes talking about themselves as, or it's just there's a bigger role for a telco to play in this landscape?
Yeah, well, you're right. I've been in telco a long time, over 30 years now, which makes me feel positively ancient. But the upside of that, and 12 of those years in the region, is we as a company do understand the way traffic flows, particularly around the Middle East. So that's definitely an area we like to focus on. So the telcos here have a really key part to play. They do in any country, in any region, when it comes to cloud and connectivity. But here we're more dependent on them because there's a lot less of them and there's a lot less competition. So if you own the local loop here, in this country that would be Dua Etisalat, you clearly have an ability to really help accelerate stuff, or on the other hand, to hold it back, depending on your commercial priorities and the shareholder priorities. I think it's probably fair to say that a characteristic of the telcos right around the region is that they are not particularly fast to embrace change and adopt new technology and offer new services. So they have good solid baseline services, but that's not necessarily what's needed when the cloud and other revolutionary ideas are changing the scene so fast. You need to react fast, you need to create new services that particularly help that. They will always have a big role to play, and if you think about some of the sectors and the segments where the telcos are particularly strong, just the nature of the way business is done here, government for example, or government-linked companies, they are very comfortable dealing with the big telcos because they have good reason to know those people for a long time. There's commonality of background and culture. And so the telcos will always have what I describe as an unnatural advantage in dealing with provision of cloud services to government entities, that type of thing. Well, good on them. I mean, there's plenty of room for everybody, and to my mind, the more the governments show adoption of cloud, it's a rising tide and it lifts all ships, so I think it's a good thing.
It is indeed a good thing, and we've seen it in other regions as well. But I've seen a number of remarks from telecom providers branding themselves as enablers rather than cloud providers. Well, it's not their core business, right? They are telecom providers. They need to provide infrastructure. That's what they need to do. But the role they can play is that they can make the pie bigger if they actually recognize that is the role to play.
Yeah.
Now, with that kind of branding that we keep seeing, do you see that they are realizing the revenue from making calls and sending texts is really going down? The next phase for them is to embrace cloud infrastructure provisioning, and OTTs are coming no matter how many times we block them.
Yeah.
They're all over the place. Do you think they're realizing that? How far are we from the point where telecom providers understand or start to actually implement those requirements for infrastructure for the cloud to be flourished?
Well, so I think there's no question that they all understand the issue. Right around the world, the same challenges face telcos. Their core products and services, connectivity, calls, are being squeezed through either competition or just commoditization of those. But I remember the same debate back in the 90s, that they were just going to be pipes. And they're still there making a lot of margin, so I'm not going to cry for them too much.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, pretty much all the telcos that we speak to, both in the region and around the world, are doing something in these new technologies, whether that's the Internet of Things, cloud, blockchain. They're all looking at where are the trends heading and where will the money be and what role can we play. But that's the point where it starts to get tricky. Ever since IT was a separate business from telecoms, IT companies have wanted to become telecoms companies, and telecoms companies have wanted to become IT companies. Well, they're pretty different things, so it's quite hard for them to make the crossover. And if you look globally, there aren't that many telcos that have really become mainstream players. There's a few good examples, but many have tried and failed. It's not lack of ideas, it's lack of execution capability.
Yeah, exactly. And experience, use cases, because cloud provider is a cloud provider at the end of the day. That's their core competency. Anyways, let me just shift to another topic, another domain that we actually covered in our Cloud Competitiveness Index. I remember at the launch event, you brought up a very nice point. One of the domains we look into is talent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when people look at talent, they figure talent is folks who understand cloud, folks who understand cloud security, who can implement, maintain cloud service provisioning. But that's not all talent encompasses. Talent is also the management layer. Talent is also where the mindset sits. And you mentioned something amazing at that session, which stuck with me. You said there's this tendency towards not being very innovative, just do what you're told, keep your head down, get the job done. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I have to say it's a great report. It's been very useful to see an objective view of some of the parameters that we kind of all discuss and talk about. So hats off to you for pulling that together, first of all. Yeah, so this is an interesting thing, and it's something we've observed very much at Orixcom over the years that we've been operating, especially in the cloud space. There's a cultural tendency across the region, and I'm generalizing for effect. There are many outlier examples that disprove this, but as a generalization, people are risk averse in the region. Some of that's cultural, some of it's just to do with the fact that historically many companies operate on a command and control system, and majority of people who work in IT are here as expats. So there's a kind of fear that you don't want to stick your head above the parapet because it's probably going to get shot and you'll be sent home and you've lost your money and your income. So that's what I meant when I said a lot of people like to be told what to do. So they want their boss to say, do this. Then whether it turns out well or it turns out bad, they're just going to get degrees of hassle, but they're not going to be entirely blamed for it. Now, cloud by definition challenges a lot of the standards that have existed historically. And if someone is used to seeing racks in a corner with the lights flashing and the disks whirring, it's a big step for them to say, I'm going to put it in some data center where I can't see it anymore and trust it to somebody else. Never mind that that's probably a more reliable IT solution. It represents unknown, and therefore that shifts into the risk category. So often we found in our discussions, you meet with the C-level guys, the CIO or the Chief Technology Officer, they're fully aware of the benefits of moving to cloud. But when you drop down to the implementation layer with the managers and the admins, they are quite resistant. And given that they've got the ear of their boss far more than anyone from the outside has, it's very easy to stop projects. So it's been hard graft to get the momentum moving. I think it is now. And I'd say that whereas 18 months, 2 years ago, the conversations, particularly with businesses, were around, well, why should I consider the cloud? That's moved. Now it's, how can I use the cloud? Great for all of us, because as the momentum builds, there's superb opportunities to come in with elements of the solution, because very few people can do the whole lot.
That's right, and if you're a CIO, going through the whole convincing and the roadmap and everything just to be on the cloud, is I would assume is very tough, because at the end of the day, every new idea should entail a kind of an ROI. And I remember it was last month, I talked to a CIO of one of the biggest shipping companies in this region, and he was telling me, look, we are a shipping company, so we're going to have to build data centers inside our ship, right? So that's what we do. And then all of a sudden I realized that we are getting a lot of data, waves, water temperature, weather conditions. So we started selling that data. So I could actually push that agenda,
Nice.
and we could make more money, and everybody embraced it. And then it got me to thinking, well, yeah, I mean, if you can make more money as opposed to just a proof of concept of spending less, it might work better. But usually it's a very tough proposition if you see it. Now, let's just we're gonna have to wrap this up real quick. It's just that I want your thoughts in terms of where we're headed as a region and as a country, the UAE. Where are we headed in terms of cloud computing? Are we going to see more international players? Are we going to see more local data centers being utilized? Are we going to see a decrease in connectivity, cost, and making it more affordable for the people? What is it that's going to be the milestone for this region in the near future?
Well, I think it's yes to all of those in a simple response. The positive news is we have some fantastic examples in this country, often driven by the government, to be fair, of real innovation and cloud adoption. Now, those of us that have lived here long enough know that when the government starts to push those kind of agendas, private business catches up. It's quite ironic because often in other parts of the world it's the other way around.
Exactly.
But we don't live in other parts of the world. So yeah, seeing the governments really embrace these new technologies is great. Now, there will be instances where a local cloud is required for data sovereignty reasons, all very valid, maybe latency, response times to applications. So there's a definite need for that. Many big companies now are actively shifting significant workloads into the big global clouds, the AWSs, the Azures. So there's a big role for them to play with the associated challenges around connectivity. But also when you look at the nature of businesses here, there's a massive market for private and hybrid cloud. Not many organizations are going to move everything to the cloud. I mean, if they do, it's a 5-year journey. But they start moving certain things to the cloud. So that's more and more where, particularly at Orixcom, we're seeing a role to play, helping people understand how they can get the best of on-premise cloud, as in a private cloud, maybe blending that with some local cloud from one of the providers in the UAE or in Saudi, whichever country we're talking about, and also increasingly looking at the international players. So gluing that together with smart software that enables them to control that efficiently and get the gains from the benefits of cloud, and gluing that together with efficient connectivity, those are the challenges, and those are where the opportunities lie as well.
Exactly. I can't help but ask you this. I was gonna wrap this up real quick, but I have to ask you this. Since you've been working with a lot of clients, big sizes, different locations, what your advice would be for a company that is trying to come to the Middle East and leverage cloud and make itself transform itself digitally as we keep on here?
Yeah. Well, I would say do your due diligence well, because there are a lot of people who talk big here, and there's a lot less that actually deliver anything. So be cautious. Whilst the cloud is maturing here, there's still pockets of real immaturity and real lacks of experience. So you can get caught, unfortunately, if you partner with the wrong person. So do your due diligence, find out what the customers they're working with, have they put good solutions in place, are they using the best practices that we find in more mature markets like Europe and America, and can they apply them with the appropriate local flavour into the Middle East? So no simple answer to that, as ever, but yeah, just do your homework and find the right partners.
Exactly, that made a lot of sense. Now, thank you. Unfortunately, we're going to have to stop the show right now. It's always great to have you on the show. I'm pretty sure we're going to have you back on the show real soon. Now, a lot of the audiences would like to know how to get in touch with you. What's the best way of reaching out to you?
Well, we're always delighted to hear from anybody. So if you go to our website, orixcom.com, you'll find various places on there. You can send emails to info or sales, and somebody will get right back in touch with you. Or just look me up on the internet. I'm sure my phone number's all over it, and give me a call.
Okay, perfect. Okay, great talking to you, Andrew. Like always.
All right, good to see you.
Take care.
Thanks.
On
Bye.
it, over and out.